वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देवा सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste. Welcome to this 11th session of Gita Jayanti celebration. Today we are going to study 6 selected shlokas from 12th chapter known as Bhakti Yoga. Every morning, the first thing we do when we get up is to apologize Bhumata for keeping foot on earth with the shloka Samudra Vasane Devi Parvatastana Mandale. Srimati Radha Murlidharan will explain the meaning and significance of this shloka after the Gita study. Today's chanting of Gita shlokas from chapter 12 will be done by Dr. Raksha and Dr. Ravishankar. Before all that, now let us attend our Gita class. Hegde sir, please.
Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha, Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi, Vedai Sangapadakramopanishadaihi, Gayanti Yam Samaga, Dhyana-vasthita Tatgatena Manasa, Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha, Yasyantam Navidu Sura Suraganaya, Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Our Gita Jayanti festival is on the 12th chapter revision today, where Arjuna begins with a question asking which form of a bhakta is superior. Do I worship you, Shri Krishna, with form, or do I worship you as the formless? The question to all of us seekers as ardent students of Swami Paramarthananda: can you follow the path of jnana and also be a bhakta? Is that possible? What do you think is the answer? Swami Paramarthananda ji is absolutely clear that both these paths can coexist in all of us. Very nicely demonstrated in the life and in the works of Swami Tapovan Maharaj, who in his book Ishvara Darshana profoundly expresses his adoration to Lord Shiva, Saumya Kashi. And also in his book on the wanderings of the Himalayas, he gives a description of whatever he sees as Vishwarupa Ishvara Darshana. And he is one of the greatest jnanis that you know, who can at the same time be Ekarupa Bhakta, Vishwarupa Bhakta, and an Arupa Ishvara Jnani. When we were small, this long play record by M.S. Subbalakshmi was released and it became very popular on Vishnu Sahasranama and the Bhajagovindam. Before the Bhajagovindam was a short introduction by the last Governor General and a great philosopher in himself, Sri Rajagopal Achari, who's famous for that song, for a very beautiful song, which has been sung by Subbalakshmi in Tamil, which is equivalent of I have no wants. I'm Atman evatmana tushtaha. I have no wants whatsoever. He has given us a very beautiful introduction on the path of bhakti and on the path of jnana. And I will go through his words because these were one of the earliest words that I've ever heard when I was very small. And I remember these words very deeply imprinted in my mind. And those of my generation would remember these words. Adi Shankaracharya wrote a number of Vedantic works for imparting knowledge of the self and the universal spirit. He also composed a number of hymns to foster bhakti in the hearts of men. One of these hymns is the famous Bhajagovindam. The way of devotion is not different from the way of knowledge or jnana. When intelligence matures and lodges securely in the mind, it becomes wisdom. When wisdom is integrated in life and issues out in action, it becomes bhakti. Knowledge, when it becomes fully mature, is bhakti. If it does not get transformed into bhakti, such knowledge is useless tinsel. To believe that jnana and bhakti, knowledge and devotion, are different from each other is ignorance. If Sri Adi Shankara, who drank the ocean of jnana as easily as one sips water from the palm of one's hand, sang in his later years hymns to develop devotion, it is enough to show that jnana and bhakti are the one and the same. Sri Adi Shankara has packed into the Bhajagovindam song the substance of all Vedanta and set the oneness of jnana and bhakti into melodious music. To answer this question, uh, which bhakta is better, Arjuna's question, Dr. Narayan Murthy will address the third and the fourth verses. Over to you, Dr. Narayan Murthy.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Bhakti is a positive and healthy emotion born out of knowledge and understanding. Bhakti Yoga is not a separate yoga. All spiritual pursuits have to be integrated with this positive attitude called Bhakti. This is the reason why Krishna dealt in such great detail about Ishvara Swarupam in the previous 5 chapters of Madhyama Shatkam, so that a seeker develops this bhakti towards the Lord, the creator of the universe. Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga, which enables the seeker gain the required qualification of sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, without which jnana prapti is not possible. In this chapter, bhakti is mentioned as a 5-stage or a 5-step pursuit, namely kamya karma pradhana bhakti, which is otherwise known as yogatshema pradhana bhakti. Second one, nishkama karma pradhana bhakti, which is required for chitta suddhi. Then eka rupa ishvara dhyanam, which gives chitta ekagrata. And vishwarupa ishvara dhyanam, aneka rupa ishvara dhyanam, which results in chitta vaishalyata. And the final one, last stage, final 5th one is jnana yoga, which results in jnana prapti, which results in purnatvam. This purnatvam confers on the seeker the qualities of emotional strength and stability and samatvam, equanimity. In reply to Arjuna's question, which of the two, Saguna Ishvara Upasana or Nirguna Ishvara Dhyanam, is superior, Krishna's reply is dealt in these 10 slokas, starting from the 3rd sloka of this chapter. This question is very similar to Arjuna's earlier question, which of the two, Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga, which is better? The answer Krishna gave is Karma Yoga is incomplete without Jnana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga is not possible without going through Karma Yoga. Similarly, Nirguna Ishvara Dhyanam is not possible without going through Saguna Ishvara Dhyanam. Now, let me come to my slokas 3 and 4. Yetu Aksharamanirddeshyam Avyaktam Paryupasate Sarvatra Gamachintyancha Utastam Achalam Dhruvam Sanniyemyendriya Gramam Sarvatra Samabuddhayaha Te Prapnuvanti Mameva Sarvabhuta Hiterataha. These 2 slokas bring in the knowledge of various features of Brahman, and to attain that Brahman, what are the required qualities of a seeker? Let me first mention the features of Brahman. Aksharam, imperishable. Anirdeshyam, indefinable. Avyaktam, unmanifest. Sarvatragam, all-pervading. Achintyam, incomprehensible. Kutastham, immutable. Achalam, immovable. And Dhruvam, eternal. To attain this Brahman, the following qualities of the seeker are enumerated as follows. Sanniyamya indriya gramam, well-restrained sense organs. Sarvatra samabuddhayaha, equal-minded towards all beings. Sarvabhuta hiterataha, interested in the welfare of all beings. Mameva paryupasate, meditate upon me alone. Prapnuvanti me, attain me. So, To sum up, such a seeker with above mentioned qualities will attain Brahman with above mentioned features. So, we as mumukshus, seekers of Brahman, have to strive to gain these qualities to attain him, means Brahman, meaning claimants of our true nature. Harihi Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Narayan Murthy, for giving us a nice introduction. Dr. Ahalya, please.
Namaste. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In this sublime chapter, Krishna introduces the 5 levels of bhakti, and we heard one of them just now. Like a cascading waterfall, from the highest level of the Nirguna Ishvara Upasana to Vishwarupa, to Ekarupa, to Nishkama Karma Anushtana, and to Sakama Karma Anushtana. Bhakti can take, the next slide, sir. Bhakti can take various forms depending upon the conditioning of the bhakta. That is, depending on the upadhis of a bhakta. Let's look at it with an example. When light falls on a mirror, it is reflected like in a Jnani Bhakta, but when the same light falls on a prism, it gets dispersed and takes the Vibgyor pattern. The level in which bhakti manifests in each individual depends on their state of triguna, their innate understanding, and their progression, and so on. However, Krishna is equally affectionate to all his bhaktas, irrespective of their level of bhakti. The next slide, sir. Bhakti is not a particular sadhana, but is the name of an entire range of spiritual sadhanas, as Swamiji explains. Looking at bhakti in an all-inclusive, expansive way brings out its essence to the fullest than looking at it in a compartmentalized way, as in looking at the dancing peacock with its feathers fully open. Next slide, sir. Vishwarupa Upasakas are Jignasu Bhaktas as we understand by the term Matparaha. Para here is the ultimate goal of life. Here it is moksha, it is not artha. So the Vishwarupa Upasakas are not artharthi Bhaktas, but they are Jignasu Bhakta. They are not even Jnani Bhaktas. The verse per se, Ye tu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matparaha ananyenaiva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate. That is the 6th verse. And the 7th one, Tesham aham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami na chirat partha maya veshita chetasam. Well, the meaning of the pushlokas. Sarvani karmani mai sanyasya. Sanyasya here is dedicating and not renouncing. Sarvani karmani, only the nitya naimittika karmas are done, not the nishiddha karma or the kamya karma. Sarvani karmani mai sanyasya, they dedicate all the actions at my feet. Matparaha, all the time committed to the goal of Nirguna Ishvara Jnanam, which is the ultimate reality. The next one, sir. Ananyenaiva yogena, and taking to a spiritual life in which he never gets distracted from the goal, mam dhyayanta upasate. So they worship me. Through this kind of meditation, the Vishwarupa dhyanena te mam pujayanti. The 7th verse, Mai aveshita chetasam, mayaveshita chetasam. They look upon me not as a means for materialistic ends, God as not the means, but they look upon me as an end in itself. Jignasu Bhakta, as we just saw. Swamiji says, Ishvare natu sadhana buddhihi, parantu Ishvare sadhya buddhihi. Ishvara is not only the sadhana, Ishvara is himself the sadhya. Tesham aham samudharta. I will rescue them. I will function as their savior. Mrityu samsara sagarat, from the ocean of samsara. Mrityu in Vedanta is samsara with ajnana. Na chirat, before long. How long will it take? Depends on the sadhana chatushtaya sampatti of the sadhaka. Hey Partha, aham samuddarta bhavami. I will become their rescuers. So in the 7th shloka, Krishna gives us a big promise that he would help us get mukti. How would it be? Either by giving jnana yogyata or by leading us to krama mukti. In fact, a shloka from Shivamanasa Puja reflects this Vishwarupa Upasaka Tattva very beautifully. So the meaning goes something like this: one who finds God everywhere and in everything, such a devotee never feels he is away from God, for he finds God in all his activities, and all his activities are an offering to God. He feels the presence of God outside him and inside him. Even in the midst of intense activity, he is bathed in sublimity and divinity. आत्मा त्वं गिरिजामतिः सहचराः प्राणाः शरीरं गृहं पूजा ते विषयोपभोगरचना निद्रा समाधिस्थिति सञ्चारः पदयोः प्रदक्षिणविधिः स्तोत्राणि सर्वा गिरा. All my words are only your stotra. Yadyad karma karomi tattad dakilam shambho tavaradhanam. This shloka conveys the meaning that such a devotee, Vishwarupa Upasaka, worships the Lord continuously through all his thoughts, speech, and action, through his perceptions and enjoyments. His whole universe, his existence becomes an offering or worship to the Lord. Such Vishwarupa Upasakas are described in these shlokas. Namaste. Harihi Om.
Thank you, Dr. Ahalya. We will go down that cascade, the next verse to be explained by Dr. Bhaskar. Dr. Bhaskar, please.
Om Gurubhyo Namaha. So, the verse number 9 says about Ekarupa Upasana. Vishwarupa Upasana will be difficult for an unprepared mind, the one with a strong Raga Dvesha. Stronger the Raga Dvesha, more crystallized the individual will be, and the mind will be confined to the objects of Raga Dvesha. So Krishna says, because mind is narrower, I'll give you a narrow God, that is Ekarupa, Ekarupa Ishvara Upasana, also called Ishtadeva, Devata Upasana. The verse goes like this. Ata chittam samadhatun na shaknoshi mai stiram abhyasa yogena tato mam ichchaptum dhananjaya. If you are not able to fix the mind firmly on me, then seek to attain me by means of Abhyasa Yoga, O Dhananjaya. In Ekarupa Upasana, instead of totality, we come to a particular God, particular form of God, that is Ishtadevata. So Ishtadevata Bhakti is developed through Purana Shravana. We have around 36 Puranas, 18 Puranams, 18 Upapuranams, which gives detailed description of various Ekarupa Saguna Ishwaras like Shiva, Rama, Devi, etc. Krishna calls this as Abhyasa Yoga. So the second line, next slide, sir. Abhyasa Yogena Mam Ichchaptum Dhananjaya. That means, may you reach me by Abhyasa Yoga. May you strive to reach me and attain liberation. So, one important question arises here. Can we get liberated through Ekarupa Ishvara Upasana? So, the answer is both yes and no. No, because one cannot attain moksha directly. Therefore, no. It is not a Sakshat Karanam. Yes, because one can attain moksha indirectly. The Ishtadevata Upasana gradually uplifts the devotion and brings to Vishwarupa Upasana. We need not bother how it is possible. Then the Vishwarupa Ishvara Upasana is naturally uplifted to Nirguna Upasana, that is Nirguna Jnanam, which is why, and that is a Vedanta Vichara. So, Nirguna Upasana will take a person to liberation. That's why Ishtadevata Upasana is a Parampara Karanam. That's why Krishna says, "Oh Arjuna, come to Abhyasa Yoga in the form Ekarupa Upasana." So even the Ekarupa Upasana will be difficult for an unprepared mind. That is because it requires three things. One is Purana Shravanam has to be done, and it demands quietude. Upasana is defined as Manasam Karana, Karma. That is the mental activity, purely a mental activity, the physical activity being passive. It is the visualization of the Lord within oneself purely with the help of the mind. And it demands Antarmukam. Upasana is possible only when the person is ready to withdraw the mind away from the external world. And one should be able to visualize the Ishtadevata. In spite of all these things, if a person has a predominant Rajoguna, the embodiment of dynamism, Krishna says, come to the second rung of the ladder, where he asks one to be highly active in the life of karma. That will be explained in the 10th verse. Hari Om.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bhaskar. We'll continue to go down that rung. Dr. Vikram will explain the next verse, verse 10. Dr. Vikram Hudid.
Namaste Gurubhyo Namaha. Abhyase pyase marto madkarma paramo bhava maddartamapi karmani kurvan siddhimavapsasi. So if you are incapable of Abhyasa Yoga, also be devoted to my work. Even by doing works for my sake, you will attain liberation. Next slide, sir. So we are coming down the steps. So, hey Arjuna, if you are unfit for Abhyasa Yoga also, Abhyasa Yoga means Ishtadevata Upasana or Ekarupa Upasana. In short, if you are too extrovert a person, what do? May you be committed to a life of activity, and activities also are divided into two in our Shastra. First one is Nishkama Karmani or Paropakara Karmani, activities dedicated to the service of the society, taking the very society as Ishvara. All the rivers run down the plains from the Himalayas to serve the humanity. Similarly, trees produce fruits not for their consumption, and they give it to others. So let your life be a life of Tyaga, a life of dedication. So thus may your life be one of the contribution, and when you contribute to the society, if you do not have a proper attitude, it will lead to arrogance. I have done this much, and therefore when you contribute to the society, look upon the society as Ishvara. They say Nara Seva is Narayana Seva. All these indicate what? I consider it as an opportunity to worship Vishwarupa Ishvara. So be selflessly active, be desirelessly active. This is the second step. Therefore, Krishna says, Mat karma parama bhava. Mat karma means nishkama karma, chitta shuddhi pradhana karma, karmas which will give you spiritual purity, which will make you qualified for Ishtadevata Upasana. When you lead a life of service, contribution, paropakara, what will happen? You will certainly attain liberation. So how will you attain liberation? This service will not directly lead to liberation. This Nishkama Karma will make the mind ready for Ekarupa Upasana, which will make the mind ready for Anekarupa Upasana, which will then make the mind ready for Aham Brahmasmi Gnanam, which will make you free. And therefore, Arjuna, take to the life of Nishkama Karma, selfless activity, and this is the second step. Now a person may argue, Lord, I cannot commit myself to Nishkama Karma. It is very nice to hear, but I cannot practice Nishkama Karma because I have got plenty of tamas. I have got countless desires in the world. Many of the desires for myself, I would have to have a global tour, I want to have a house, I want to have a car, and also I have desires for my family members. So therefore, how can I give up kama? So therefore, after I complete my duties, I will think of nishkama karma. Let me pray for my child, my grandchild, my wife, etc. So what I am supposed to do, oh Lord? Krishna says, okay, you have worldly desires, you fulfill your personal desires, nothing wrong. If you are interested in education of children, in the marriage of the children, there is nothing wrong. After all, you want to fulfill your duty as a family person. It is not wrong. You need not feel bad about it. So may you have kamas, and therefore you can do sakama karmas also. And Veda itself prescribes many kama karmas for children's education and other things also. So no desire you have, fulfill that. And because when unfulfilled desires are within, and I try to come to Vedanta and close my eyes, only that will hover in my mind. Any unfulfilled desire is in the mind, it will create a bug. Therefore, fulfill them. Whatever you want to eat, all legitimately you do it. So, what is the last step? Krishna says, may you be committed to sakama karma. Let your karma yoga, sakama pradhana karma yoga does not matter. How should you practice that karma yoga? That I will tell you. It is the lowermost step which is given in next verse.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vikram. We go down the rung again, and Neeta will explain verse 11. Neeta, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In this verse, Krishna speaks of the first level of bhakti, the Sakama Bhakta or the Artha-Arthi Bhakta. This Bhakta prays to God for material goals. God is the means and the material goals are the end. When we think about it, most of us as Grahasthas have selfish desires. We wish for a comfortable lifestyle, good health. We wish that our kids do well, the future is secure, our parents are happy. Actually, there is no full stop. Bhakti comes as prayers to the God to grant our wishes. And we even do rigorous rituals to achieve these goals. Swami Paramathanandaji says, it's okay to fulfill these desires. There is nothing wrong in fulfilling your duties as a Grahastha. You need not feel bad about it. You can do Sakama Karma. Even the Vedas actually prescribe some Kama Karmas for children's welfare. If these desires, when they are unfulfilled, they hover around in our minds. Sakama Karma, utilized as a way of bhakti, is the lowest stage we can start with. Krishna doesn't expect us to be spiritual. We can be materialistic, but he advises, while we work for our worldly desires, do not adopt immoral or unrighteous methods. Do only legitimate actions with discipline and sincerity. The second condition he says is when we enjoy the benefit of our effort, don't get lost in the enjoyment and thank the Lord before and take the enjoyment as a gift of the Lord. Don't call it karma phalam. As we know, the fruits of the actions are based on many, many other factors than just what the actions we do. Call it Ishvara Prasad. Take it with love, always with a sense of gratitude. Once we take everything as Ishvara Prasad, even the selfish actions will have the capacity to purify our mind. We will be able to climb the ladder of bhakti. Swamiji gives an example. When we build a house to live, I do the Grah Pravesh Puja. I look upon the house as a Lord's house. I dedicate it to the Lord, and then I permit myself to live as a tenant of the temple. I call it the temple. I live in the temple, and then there are so many benefits. My personal desire of having the house gets fulfilled. Selfish desire now helps me to purify my mind. The house will be a pure house, and it will be free of inauspiciousness. Vastu or no vastu. This lifestyle is called Sakama Karma Pradhana Karma Yoga. If I practice this Sakama Karma Pradhana Karma Yoga for a length of time, my personal desires will come down. I will be able to go up the ladder. I will transcend and not suppress the glamours of my finite desires. They will start to appear petty, just like a balloon which attracted me as a child now will mean nothing much to me. The verse goes, Athai tad apya ashaktosi kartum madhyogam ashritaha sarva karma phala tyagam tatha kuruyat atmavan. Atha etad api ashakto asi. That's the first 5 words. Even if you are not able to do this, this means what? Nishkama karma. Actions in accordance to the Lord's will. Mad yogam ashritaha. Work that is dedicated to the Lord with Ishvara arpana bhava. Even if I cannot do this, then tatha sarva karma phala tyagam kuru yat atmavan. Renounce the fruits of the action and be eased in the self, established in the self. For the Sakama Bhakta, it is only natural to expect a worldly and personal benefit while doing the action. Then what is meant by karma phala tyaga? When we take the fruits of the action as Ishvara Prasad, the renunciation will be of our ahankara, that I am the doer. The renunciation will be of anxiety, worry, expectations of what will be the fruits of my actions. Then I will not be disappointed if the results are not the way I expected them to be. We know now that whatever is going to happen is good or for my good. This behavior will give me antakarana shuddhi. By the end of this verse, all the 5 levels of bhakti have been discussed. Even a level 1 bhakta is trained to accept everything cheerfully. And Swamiji says, if I can't even do this, if I can't even hold on to the to Narayana for and thank him for this for the fruits of the action, then no problem. Better luck next lifetime. Hari Om.
Thank you, Neeta. We come to the last Gita presentation today, and that will be by Pallavi. Over to you, Pallavi.
Hari Om. Santushta satatam yogi yatatma dridha nishchayaha maya pita mano buddhir yo madbhakte samay priyaha. In this shloka, Lord Krishna says, that devotee of mine whose mind and intellect are fixed upon me, who is ever content, tranquil, self-restrained with clear knowledge is dear to me. There are 4 types of people. Siddhi, Jnanam, one with self-knowledge and miraculous powers. Siddhi is a liberated Jnani. Siddhi Rahit Jnanam, one with self-knowledge without any Siddhi is also liberated. Jnana Rahit Siddhi. The one who has Siddhi but no Jnanam is not liberated. Siddhi Jnanam Rahit, the one who has neither Siddhi nor Jnanam is an Ajnani. Now, Jnani, Parabhakta should have what? Just Jnanam. The characteristics of a Jnanam or a Parabhakta or a Sthita Prajna is as follows. Santushtaha, the one who has discovered fullness within himself. This inner Purnatvam is called Santoshaha, and the person who has achieved is Santushtaha. Statatam, eternal contentment. The Jnani and Yogi through knowledge discovers that Jivatma and Paramatma is singular. Yogi. Yoga means that which combines together 2 things. The Jivatma, the seeker, and Paramatma, the sought by the means of yoga. Jnanam is the yoga in its primary sense. Karma and Upasana are called yoga in the secondary sense. Yatatma means that person who has learned to regulate his own body, mind, sense complex with self-realization, with self-discipline. Drid Nishchaya. Drid means Sthita, Nishchaya means Prajna, the one who has got knowledge with conviction. The 2-fold process to gain Vedantic knowledge is Shravanam and Mananam until one achieves conviction. This is called Drid Nishchay. Mayarpita Manobuddhi, the one whose emotional and rational personalities are surrendered at the feet of the Lord. Yat mat bhaktaha. Initially, one sees Lord as Ekrupa Ishvara or Ishtadevata Ishvara, then Vishwarupa Ishvara, and finally Arupa Ishvara. A Jnani appreciates Nirguna Brahma and continues to have devotion to the Saguna Ishvara as well. Last, Same Priya. Here Krishna says, such a person is dearest to me. In fact, he is me. Aham Brahma Asmi, the ultimate truth, the Mahavakyam. Hari Om.
Thank you, Pallavi, for giving us all the descriptions of a Parabhakta, which our former Governor General, Sri Rajgopal Achari, described in his poem as Korai Unrum Ille. I have no wants whatever. I am completely full. We have a mantra, a prayer, a very simple prayer, but a very profound prayer, which will be explained to us by Radha. Radha, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Samudra Vasane Devi Parvatasthana Mandale Vishnupatni Namastubhyam Padasparsham Kshamaswame. Now this prayer is taught along with another prayer, mostly when we are kids. That is Karagre Vasate Lakshmi, Karamadhye Saraswati, Karamole, Gauri, or Mukunda, whatever. Prabhate Karadarshanam. So, as soon as one gets up from the bed or gets up from the sleep, this is how we are taught to start our day. First, looking at our hands and praying for prosperity, knowledge, and power. And then when we want to touch the earth, put our feet on the ground, then one more prayer is invoked where we say, "O Devi, the wife of Vishnu, I am touching you with my feet. Please forgive me for doing this act. And you are the Devi who is adorned with the oceans or the water bodies as your robes, and the Parvatas, the mountains with all the plantation, flora, fauna, minerals and everything in it, a nourishing mountain." Denoting the mountain to be her Vakshasthala or the breast. Now the breast of Devi in the Vishwarupa denotes the nurturing or the nourishing aspect of Devi here. Now, why do we have to start our day saying these prayers? Well, it is talking about our limbs basically. One prayer talks about the hands and other prayer looks at our feet or the legs. So in whatever situation we are in life, no matter whatever resources are given to us and whichever way we are born in whichever families, now what you want to make of the life that is given to you is absolutely in your hands. And this is a profound insight which this prayer brings is all that you have to do is work through your hands. And this prayer, Samudra Vasane Devi, when we want to do some work, we have to move, right? So when we put our foot down, it symbolizes how we move about in our life, not just the movement of walking or going to place, but also the attitude. Now, from the beginning of today's class, from Dr. Hegde onwards, everybody has been speaking about Bhakti, Jnana, Vishwarupa. If I combine all this, if you have the Jnana, that what I see around is nothing but Devi herself. I have this awareness, I have this knowledge. And then when I have such knowledge, which I carry with me, then automatically the devotion comes. Every step I take, every action I do, slowly over a period of time, I develop some kind of emotion, some kind of devotion in me. So this Jnana and this Bhakti enable me to see the Vishwarupa Ishvara at all times. Now here we are talking about Vishnu's Patni. Why? Vishnu is supposed to be the preserver or the protector or somebody who has to run this business of the universe, right? Typically in the world, anybody who has to run a business or an enterprise, he needs money, manpower, machine, and material, the 4 M's. And also I think we can add one more M called media in these days, because without that nothing is possible. Well, how does Vishnu run his enterprise of conducting this universe and feeding all of us? Is through Bhudevi and Sri Devi. Now the Bhudevi and Sri Devi are the two energies of Mahavishnu through which he works the whole enterprise of preserving us. Now what does Bhudevi signifies? The Mother Earth signifies the fertility. She is also called Dhatri or Dharani, right? Which means she is holding everything together in this earth. Imagine if there is an earth which is just fluid and moving about, we would be in great trouble, right? So all the resources, all the minerals underground, all the treasures in the oceans, all the forests, water, everything that you can think of is held together by this Bhudevi. And who is this Sri Devi? Like, for example, we have the land, we have the sun, we have the water, and we have all the resources. But a man has to work with his hands to cultivate the crop and bring out the food from the earth. That is Sri Devi. So the Bhudevi is there very much. She is very much fertile and holding everything within her. And a human being has to work hard and bring out the Shri from the Bhu. So these are the two aspects of Vishnu. And that is why when we inculcate such prayers, what are we trying to do is, we are trying to bring in the environmentalists in each one of us. The sages of our land, the rishis, were the great environmentalists. When you teach a young kid that this water is the robe of the Devi, this mountain is her breast, and this forest is her hair, and things like that, if you try to slowly put into the head of the children, there is no need to worry about environment so much, because it is taken care in our day-to-day activities. These days, we hear a lot about being aware, and there are a lot of words like being mindful and all. So when we put our foot on the ground with the awareness that I am touching the Devi herself, so I make a contact with lot of gratitude, reverence, respect, and everything. And there is a connect totally established with the environment around me. When we talk about mindfulness, what are we actually talking is that I have to be aware and I have to be connected 24/7. Now this connect is a beautiful way to bring subtleness and gratitude into our life. And what better way to start our day than being grateful for everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Radha, for giving us a deep significance of this particular mantra. In our topic of meditation, I was looking for one esoteric story, which I remember was in this book of Osho called This Very Body, the Buddha, This Very Place, the Golden Paradise. And I was so touched by this particular chapter, and I request to read this chapter. And last time we had gone through where Osho had begun by saying, if you want to see God, the only way is to bring in love in your heart. And his message was, love is my message, let it be yours too. Let love grow in you and God will grow on its own accord. He insisted that there is no God other than godliness. Don't look for a person. These are all childish attitudes. Godliness is, when I say godliness is, in whatever exists is God. Now to ask where is God, he says, is a wrong question. But to ask the right question, you should be able to prepare the soil in your heart. And the way to prepare it is to bring in love in your heart. When there is love in your heart, the world is full of God. The message of the story that I'm going to share today comes from one of Buddha's famous quotations, which says, Sabba dhanam dhamma dhanana janati. The best gift that you can give is the gift of your understanding. And Buddha and Osho in this story wants to tell us how you need to share your understanding. He introduced a small song, Hakuun song, who was the master of silence, It was an extremely small song, this very body, the Buddha, this very place, the golden paradise, where he was trying to say that if you have to see Buddhahood in yourself, if you have to see the world around you as paradise, you need to be able to cleanse the dust, and then Buddhahood emerges on its own. In Vedanta, you have a phrase called avidya kama karma. Avidya means I am not aware of my true nature. I am already that which I can possibly be. When I am ignorant, then because I want fulfillment, a desire comes. And when desire comes, I cannot keep quiet. I have to run after it. And my whole life is running after happiness. And the more you run after happiness, happiness seems to run away from you. In this particular chapter, Osho talks about a poem from Michael Adams, where he analyzes what is our desire. Is it that trying to be happy is chasing happiness away from you? Osho says happiness is when your consciousness is awake. Unhappiness is when your consciousness is asleep. The more you search, the less is the possibility, because it is inside you. It is not inside you alone, it is you. But when you become, or when you have those wondering eyes of a child, in that clarity, you discover you are already that. This is an exceedingly beautiful poem which talks about avidya kama in our understanding. It is a very long poem. We will put it up in our website, but I will give excerpts from this poem, which goes like this. Perhaps trying to be happy is the cause of unhappiness. Perhaps trying even makes for unhappiness. Perhaps all the din of my desiring has kept the strange bird from my shoulders. I have tried so long and so loud after happiness. I have looked so far and wide. I have always imagined that happiness was an island in the river. Perhaps it is the river. Perhaps trying to be happy is the cause of unhappiness. I have always thought happiness to be the name of an inn at the end of the road. Perhaps it is the road. I have always believed that happiness was tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Perhaps it is here. Perhaps it is now. I have looked everywhere else. When you realize that there is nothing to do and nowhere to go, when you are absolutely still, you are here and now, then you discover happiness. Michael Adams continues, when I cease to try to be happy or anything else, when I do not seek anymore, when I do not care to go anywhere, get anything, then it seems I am already arrived in a strange place. But be here and now, and that is the message. Happiness will find you. The more you run away, happiness eludes you. A new door has opened when you come to the present. For the moment, the mind is still and present. I have hunted after shadows. The reality is here in this sunlit place, in this bird called now. It was my seeking after reality that took me from it. Desire deafened me. The bird was singing here all the while. If I am still and careless to find happiness, then happiness, it seems, is able to find me. Happiness suddenly jumps on you. There is a verse, there is a line which is very famous, which says, all the time I want happiness. And the message is, if you can take out the ego I, if you take out the desiring want, you are left with happiness. When desire disappears, happiness appears. When the striving is no more, for the first time you see who you are. That knowing is what Buddha means. Come and see. Ihi pasika. From where is he calling? He's calling you from your desires. Avidya, that which is born out of incomplete knowledge. Then comes karma, and then comes karma. This is the story that I was looking for, and I would like to share, which the essential message is, if you have something good, and that is basically your understanding, can we share it? And the story goes like this. I will read. These are the words of Osho. Once upon a time, there dwelt an old king in a palace. In the center of a golden table, there shone a large and a magnificent jewel. Each day of the king's life, the stone sparkled more resplendently. One day, a thief stole the jewel and hid in the forest. As he stared with deep joy at the stone, to his amazement, the image of the king appeared in it. "I have come to thank you," said the king. "You have released me from my attachment to earth. I thought I was freed when I acquired this jewel, but then I learned that I would be released only when I passed it on to someone with a pure heart to another. The jewel you hold is understanding. Each day of my life, I polished that stone until finally the day arrived when the jewel became so beautiful that you stole it, and I have passed it on and I am released. The jewel that you hold is understanding. You cannot add to its beauty by hiding it or hinting that you have it, nor yet by wearing it with vanity. The beauty comes of the consciousness that others have of it. Honor that which gives beauty. That is why all our masters, all our gurus, all our Buddhas have been going on giving us whatever they have understood. They are understanding. The beauty comes of sharing it. It has to be shared to keep it alive. It has to be given. The more you give, the more you will have to give. And the best way to share is to share your understanding, to share your blessings. We conclude today's class by the chanting of the 12th chapter of the Gita by Dr. Ravi Shankar and Dr. Raksha. Over to you, Dr. Ravi Shankar.
श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। अथ द्वादशोऽध्यायः। अर्जुन उवाच एवं सततयुक्ताये भक्तास्त्वां पर्युपासते ये चाप्यक्षरमव्यक्तं तेषां के योगवित्तमाः।
श्री भगवान् उवाच मय्यावेश्य मनो ये मां नित्ययुक्ता उपासते श्रद्धया परयोपेताः ते मे युक्ततमः मताः।
ये त्वक्षरमनिर्देश्यम् अव्यक्तं पर्युपासते सर्वत्र गमचिन्त्यं च कूटस्थमचलं ध्रुवम्।
सन्नियम्येन्द्रियग्रामं सर्वत्र समबुद्धयः ते प्राप्नुवन्ति मामेव सर्वभूतहिते रताः।
क्लेशोऽधिकतरस्तेषाम् अव्यक्तासक्तचेतसाम् अव्यक्ता हि गतिर्दुःखम् देहवद्भिरवाप्यते।
ये तु सर्वाणि कर्माणि मयि संन्यस्य मत्पराः अनन्येनैव योगेन मां ध्यायन्त उपासते
तेषामहं समुद्धर्ता मृत्युसंसारसागरात् भवामि न चिरात् पार्थ मय्यावेशितचेतसाम्।
मय्येव मन आदत्स्व मयि बुद्धिं निवेशय निवसिष्यसि मय्येव अथ ऊर्ध्वं न संशयः।
अथ चित्तं समाधातुं न शक्नोषि मयि स्थिरम् अभ्यासयोगेन ततः मामिच्छाप्तुं धनञ्जय।
अभ्यासेऽप्यसमर्थोऽसि मत्कर्म परमो भव मदर्थमपि कर्माणि कुर्वन् सिद्धिमवाप्स्यसि।
अथैतदप्यशक्तोऽसि कर्तुं मद्योगमाश्रितः सर्वकर्मफलत्यागं ततः कुरु यतात्मवान्।
श्रेयो हि ज्ञानमभ्यासात् ज्ञानाद् विशिष्यते ध्यानात् कर्मफलत्यागः त्यागात् शान्तिरनन्तरम्।
अद्वेष्टा सर्वभूतानां मैत्र करुण एव च निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः समदुःखसुखक्षमी
सन्तुष्टः सततं योगी यतात्मा दृढनिश्चयः मय्यर्पितमनो बुद्धिः यो मद्भक्तः स मे प्रियः
यस्मान्नो द्विजते लोकः लोकान्नो द्विजते च यः हर्षामर्षभयोद्वेगैः मुक्तो यः स च मे प्रियः
अनपेक्षः शुचिर्दक्षः उदासीनो गतव्यतः सर्वारम्भपरित्यागी यो मद्भक्तः स मे प्रियः
यो न हृष्यति न द्वेष्टि न शोचति न काङ्क्षति शुभाशुभपरित्यागी भक्तिमान्यः स मे प्रियः
समशत्रौ च मित्रे च तथा मानापमानयोः शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु समः सङ्गविवर्जितः
तुल्यनिन्दास्तुतिर्मौनी सन्तुष्टो येन केनचित् अनिकेतस्थिरमतिः भक्तिमान् मे प्रियो नरः
ये तु धर्म्यानृतमिदं यथोक्तं पर्युपासते श्रद्धदानामत्परमाः भक्तास्तेतीव मे प्रियाः ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुन संवादे भक्तियोगो नाम द्वादशोऽध्यायः हरिः ओम तत्सत्
Thank you, Ravi sir and Raksha ma'am. Today's session will conclude with this, friends. On Wednesday, that is day after tomorrow, let us study shlokas drawn from 13th chapter. Thank you all for your wholehearted participation. Let's meet on Wednesday evening, same time for the next class. Please log in before 6:45 p.m. local time. Let's conclude with the Shanti mantra. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om.